Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to this edition of Drive Time on May the 4th. So joined here by the one and only Scooter. Showtime Sarah. It is exam week, so I did get a pass for her as far as being on the actual show. But I do have some comments that we'll read when we get to our Raleigh road trip. But of course, it is May the 4th. So Scooter, May the 4th be with you.
Live long and prosper.
That's not the right one.
Oh, go Luke. Go Luke. Run, Luke, run.
Do you have a favorite Star Wars movie with May the 4th being today?
Yeah, my favorite is Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I remember seeing that in the movie theaters too as a kid. I don't remember going to see Star Wars in the theater, but I did see it in the theater, which is what all of us called Episode 4. It was always called Star Wars, and then it was The Empire Strikes Back, and then it was Return of the Jedi. So, but yeah, so if I ever say Star Wars, I refer to the original movie, which is always a great go-to because it's so probably perfectly simple. And the John Williams music is absolutely anything he touches is golden.
I mean John Williams is the best, right? I mean you hear that and you hear that first line, the first bar, and you immediately know, oh, this is we know it's coming on, this song, right? It's just you can't beat it. I do remember seeing Star Wars because I think it's honestly the first film that I think I remember seeing live, going to a movie theater and seeing. I think I probably agree with you. I think Empire is probably my favorite one, especially the three original ones. I know the last three got kind of a lot of hatred, but I kind of liked them all. I mean, I liked them all really. The only one I didn't like was the one with Jar Jar Binks. That's the only one to me that's kind of like, eh. But besides for that, but now I think the problem is though now is just the Disney thing is just completely saturated the market with. Like I don't even know what to watch and what not to watch anymore from the Star Wars stuff.
Right. Like I of the three new ones they put out there, I like the first one because it had Han Solo,
Right.
He's always great, and Han and Chewie. But then the other two were just like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on. Especially with like they're like on horseback in space on a Star Destroyer. I don't know. So I've never seen that one again. But I actually through the years I learned to like the prequel movies, minus some of the acting. The acting's
right.
Great. But
yeah, I just can't get over the Jar Jar Binks one. I think that's the only part. I mean, the whole rest and the Phantom Menace, the rest of it, I think it's okay. But yeah, it's just like the whole Jar Jar Binks thing.
Well,
I do like the Mandalorian, but that.
I mean, Jar Jar Binks is responsible for everything that occurs because he is the one that goes to like the Imperial. He goes to the Senate to get them to give the powers to the Emperor. Who, by the way, I forgot the Emperor is in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, one of the funniest movies you'll find out there. He plays the butler and he says to Steve Martin, "Welcome to hell." It's so
I didn't know that was him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I think that's one of our favorite comedies too. So I'm right there with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there you go. Just a little Star Wars talk because it is May the 4th. I know we're not a Star Wars podcast, but hey, we got to do it. So, of course, we are live here on YouTube, Facebook, and X today, and now 24/7 on YouTube. We're available, and you can also listen to us next day on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pocket Cast, Podbean, and Castbox. So we are everywhere for your listening and enjoyment purposes. So we do thank you for coming along on this fun journey. Now, of course, unfortunately, today we do have to start the show with the sad news of John Sterling passing. For those that may not know the name, you definitely know the voice. He is the voice of the Yankees for basically whatever it was the past almost 30 some plus years. Let me pull up my notes here. He passed away 89. At 87. Yep, started with the Yankees in 89, known as the voice of the Yankees when he retired in 2024. Of course, known for his personalized calls, including an A-bomb for A-Rod, and then there's of course the infamous "the Yankees win." I can't do it nearly as well, but I think a lot of people probably didn't know he also called games for the Baltimore Colts and I think the then Baltimore Bullets before they moved to DC. He kind of had his own Cal Ripken streak where he called 5,060 consecutive regular season games for the Yankees and 211 playoff games in a row without missing one. So definitely the voice of the Yankees, and being a huge baseball radio, like I love, like the old school voices, the Ernie Harwells, the Vin Scullys, they all are unfortunately, passing now, and it's kind of yet another one of those things as you get older as an adult, the voices you remember as a kid all just starting to leave, and it's kind of sad to say least. I'm not a Yankee fan, but this one still hurts a lot because he's a great voice, right?
Yeah, his history is so amazing because, like, I remember growing up watching the Yankees. He wasn't a part of that. But there were parts apparently, like, he used to work way back in the day with Mel Allen, who you can find him on The Naked Gun.
That's
But
right.
he also did, like you were saying with Baltimore. He was a play guy for Morgan State University. He also did the Islanders. He was on New York Islanders, and before he did the Islanders, he did the World Hockey Association's New York Raiders. So he
New
was a
York Raiders.
Raiders guy. But yeah,
Yeah.
his history goes back forever. Like, I remember when he came into the fold, and I'm like, I don't know much about this guy because I was always used to Phil Rizzuto and other guys that, like Mel Allen and the other guys they had. And he came in, and then he just took over. He had post game shows, pre game shows, and he did it, like you said, for like ever.
The the little Vic checking in here. Another one that had a little fun here with that end up joining us this weekend. Says, as Big Poppy would say, "Duh, Yankees lose," and he says he know that Poppy and Sterling end up being good friends later on. Yep. So I think he's just one of those voices that you don't have to be a Yankee fan to appreciate how he called the game. So like I said, it's I having Tom, lucky having Tom Hamilton still calling games for the Guardians and getting to hear his great radio calls, but know that he's reaching the twilight of his career too. And it's like, man, after Hammy goes, I'm trying to think of what other great radio voices are out there. 'Cause I don't think John Miller's calling games anymore for the Giants. He used to be the voice of the O's, and I can't think of any of the other ones. I guess the closest would be Buck, but Buck's not even really doing baseball anymore. So it's like who's out there of those old school voices that are left? I can't really think of any.
And I mean, we lost Vince Scully just a few years ago. So I
Yep.
mean,
Yep. And and Joe Buck and it's just and his dad. So it's like, what are you gonna do? But the time keeps moving on. So sooner or later, some new voices will come on, and they'll take their place. So I guess if assuming radio survive, baseball and radio, I think baseball and radio will always survive in some way, shape, or form at least. So for all right, so there we go. So there's some sad stuff. So next part up here, and this is what is up here, and this is where if you're watching the show on any of the three events live, like put in some comments. Like this I want this to be as interactive. I'm gonna have this up all day, so maybe if you join in late, like a different subject, if you put in yours, we'll read it. So, but anyway. I was sending different little video clips of the trip to Raleigh. Basically, we found out Friday morning at 8 a.m. that the Canes were going to have a home playoff game on Saturday. I'd always joked that I wanted to try to get Jared down there for a playoff game because they're just the regular season games are fun, and I've taken Naylor's been down there with me, and I wanted to get him though because I always kept saying the playoff experience is just a different beast. But we're never sure if we're actually going to be able to go or not. And then because whenever they've had a home playoff game on the weekend, it's just always worked out where we've had something else going on. So somehow we didn't have anything planned this weekend. The tickets weren't terrible, and so here we are. We decided to head in the car and head down to Raleigh. And for anyone that has never been to a Canes game, part of what makes it unique and fun is again like they're the only professional team in town in Raleigh, North Carolina for now. There's talk maybe they'll get a baseball team, maybe not. But you have the atmosphere of three huge college universities, Duke, UNC, and NC State, all very close by. So the Carolina Hurricanes kind of become the one team that these three fan bases can all agree on and cheer. And there's a huge parking lot out in front of the stadium, and it's very close to Carter Finley Stadium. And so it is open for tailgating experiences. And I think half the fun is, of course, the experience inside the arena, outside the arena, even before you go in. So here's a few photos. This one here is my old neighbors that were the Lockberry course. So there, of course, is Vic, who's been on the show with us, and then that's Ken, who is one of my dearest friends, and his wife Sandra, and then of course me with the Caniacs, with Sarah, Jared, and Emily. Even Emily came to this game. So it was a fun experience to share with all the kids, and to be able to go inside and enjoy it. So before I'll show one of the videos, just at the end of it when the team comes out, of just how crazy loud it is in there even beforehand. But Scooter, do you have any like do you have a family memory of taking going to a live sporting event that ended up being a pretty big game that you saw live with anyone, family or friends?
Well, yeah, the one that is most memorable to me, it's like the 1987 NHL playoffs. It's Game 6. Hartford is hosting the Bruins, and it goes into overtime. And the Bruins would always bus in their 13 buses or whatever, full of drunk Boston fans. That's why I always hated Boston fans. And they're in there, and I'm with my brother and my dad. So my brother's probably like 16, 17, 18. I'm like 15, something like it was in that range. So, and I remember my dad's kind of like, no, no swearing. You're going to hear a lot of stuff, kids, whatever. And we were kind of up there, and we heard a lot of stuff. And there was this one annoying Boston fan who was just like, he was like 40 years old, drunk, and like harassing my brother, sort of. And so finally, I think it was Kevin Dinning. He breaks away, scores in overtime. The Whalers go crazy. They win. And I remember my brother just looking at that fan as he looked up at my brother. And my brother just gave him the biggest middle finger you've ever seen. And my dad kind of looked the other way and let that one slide.
I think that's only fair. I was told my first hockey experience as a kid, which I barely remember this. It was the old Toledo Gold Diggers and the old Toledo Sports Arena, which neither exist anymore. They're now the Toledo Walleye. But I was I think I was 7 according to the rumor. And there's some call on the ice and everyone starts chanting, bullshit, bullshit. So of course, I join in and they're like, well, we can't yell at them. Like everyone is chanting bullshit. Like, what are you going to do? So, I think that's my first true, hockey growing experience. So now Sarah couldn't be here, but this was her comment. It'll kind of lay into the video here I'm going to read. So she said, because I asked her like, what did she feel like the difference was? And she said the difference didn't hit me until the warm-ups. The stadium was already loud for the pregame video. Energy stayed like that throughout the game, especially first and second periods where Canes took 3 a lead. The game was mostly content and fan interaction, which is true. It was a lot of fun just interacting with different folks. And we were outside tailgating, and I think you can kind of see him working the grill back behind my head here. He was wearing a Thrashers jersey, so I went over and started talking to him. And he's originally from Atlanta, hoping that they get a team, but he comes up here, he roots for the Canes because
big Danny Heatley fan.
Yeah, and he talked about how they kind of screw things over in Atlanta. So I was like, well, you think you're going to get one? And I don't know if they will or won't, but
well, Germany.
We'll see what ends up happening. So if this here plays here, let me make this here a little bit bigger sideways so you can see it. And I think I have it set where you can hear the sound. And by the way, Facebook, because I know that this is my own X page, so you can't. This is my own page. I took this video, so hopefully we don't get in trouble for me showing my own video. So, but so I'm just I want to preface that so we don't get in trouble. This is my own video.
I showed this video to a friend of mine that I was out with that night, and she was pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of like, and this is still 5 minutes before they even come out, and I'm not going to play this whole thing, but I am going to fast forward to about, let's see here, gotta have to. So they're still doing this here, and then you can kind of really, once the refs come out, that's me saying let's go Stripes, of course, So I still got to give my referees their love, but now's when you can kind of really start to. And this is the part I always love this part because this is where and it is true that the players have said that they can hear this when the crowd starts going. Yeah, like they hear the crowd going loud, and again, nothing really. There's no music playing to get it going. It's just simply they can hear you, and everyone starts waving the towels, and it just amps up and keeps amping up and keeps amping up, and then we'll get. So you get that vibe here, and then right here, where once it gets to this part, and then the siren goes. So she did pretty good. Yeah, she did pretty good. I can't remember. She's one of the one of the basketball.
Oh, I see some siren person on the video screen.
Yeah. And of course, Philly comes out, the boos start coming out, because the Philly comes out first, so the boos start hitting, and then you hear, Rock Me Like a Hurricane, and then they come out. So, just just really well done there in Raleigh. They've really sold into the whole sound the siren thing, and they do really good job with that. So I just wanted to play a little bit of that from that experience. So
And they
let's
play Klaus
see.
Miners. They play his music
They
from
do.
uh, from Rock Me Like a Hurricane.
Oh, nice. Rock. Vic said you couldn't hear the sound on
Right.
Facebook. Well, I tried. I tried to have the sound in there, but it wasn't guaranteed it's going to look. He said we had one of those. Yeah, this was kind of funny. We had a Boston fan who was cheering for Philly, and I found that ironic because the weird part is the 76ers were playing the Celtics in Game 7 that
I was
night.
watching that game too.
And I thought it was perfect karma, the fact that this guy was in there rooting for Philly when he's wearing his Bruins jersey, and then the 76ers beat the Celtics. I was like, you know what? You deserve that for coming in here wearing a Bruins jersey, and then your poor Celtics lost. So yeah, I totally forgot about that. But that was also one of the funnier moments of that whole evening, was that part. And it was
It's a
funny
good
because
one.
it was in between the second and third period when there was about, I think, 2 minutes left in that basketball game, and I was trying to figure out why all the Flyers fans were around the bar that they put in on the third floor. And then I looked up and I saw that score, and I'm like, okay, now I get it. Now I know why. So so there you have it. So there was our little fun here. We definitely had a good time. How do I get this here to move here? For some reason, it's not moving along here. Here we go. Let's try doing it this way here. There it goes. All right. Now I went too far. So let me go back here one. So let's talk the Kentucky Derby here. We'll do that one first here, and then I'll just leave that on there. So, of course, the Kentucky Derby was going off right when we got into the building that night. But we had our first Golden Tempo, of course, wins it. It was kind of crazy because we didn't realize watching it then that it was the horse that was in last place for 3 quarters, for the first 3 quarters of it, that ended up winning it. And we also have our first female trainer that wins it. Sherry DeVoe becomes the first trainer to win the Derby, the second female to win any Triple Crown race after Jenna did it with the Belmont in 2023 with Arcangelo. It's also the first Derby win for Jose Ortiz in his 11th Derby. His brother rode on Renegade, who ended up finished second, which I thought was pretty cool too. So, Scooter, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think of the Derby?
Well, I was disappointed because my horse, Chief Wallaby, he didn't have a good run, but he finished fourth coming out from there, and then some of the other horses that were supposed to do better didn't do as well. But yeah, that was an amazing run. I've actually never seen something like that from so far back, and then to win it like that, and so I was really impressed with that horse because it really found it at the end, and the track is long, of course, so if you're going to turn on the tail at the end of a race, that's where you do it, at that track right there. So I was pretty impressed.
Jeff Nail checking in. Kentucky Derby Day for many years was Caps Elimination Day, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's from a Caps fan, so I feel for you on that. But yeah, it true. It does seem like that those 2 days did coincide a lot together, especially during during the Sidney Crosby days here too. It says need Renegade to Sun
Well, to build upon what
to
Jeff
win.
was talking about, there's one season where, you remember, the race doesn't start till like 6:50,
Right.
and this hockey game started at 1:05. It was the Caps and the Penguins. Yeah, I forgot what it was. It could have been a game 6. It was obviously a Saturday afternoon.
Isn't it double overtime if I remember right?
Yeah, and like all of a sudden they're like, oh, we got to go to NBC's pre-race. It's like it's 3 o'clock or it's 4 o'clock. It's like it doesn't race for another 3 hours,
Right.
and it got changed to some channel that you had if you
Yeah.
had cable and all that stuff. But it was just like, what are they doing here, man? This game's going
I,
to be over. It could be over in 5 minutes. But
right.
no, they put on 3 hours of horse racing before the race.
I remember that now. Yeah, totally. Yeah, they had done. Yep, up there because it was the '90s against the Penguins. Yep. So now that you said that, I do remember that they swapped out of that game for the Derby coverage, unfortunately. So crazy to say the least. So let's see here. Also, what else do we have here? So the Phillies, and this happened earlier in the week. The Phillies fired Rob Thompson, another one of these. I think the whole reason why they honestly fired him is because they thought they were going to get Alex Cora because he got fired from the Red Sox, but then Cora said thanks, but no thanks. So they ended up hiring Don Mattingly as their interim manager, which I kind of, I'm kind of glad that Don's getting another shot. I think he deserves a shot. We'll see how long it lasts, of course, or not. But Rob was off to 9-19 start with the Phillies. They lost 11-12, but he was 355 and 270 overall. So I know the Phillies are off to a terrible start, but a little bit surprised by this one. I know the guys had commented on this earlier in the week, but we have not had a chance to comment yet on it. So, Scooter, what are your thoughts on the Phillies move?
Yeah, so I think it's that whole. We were even talking about that, like, oh, if Boston fires their guy, when does the Phillies fire theirs, and when do the Mets fire theirs? So, or obviously, Rob Thompson was the second of the of the head shopping, and Don Mattingly's done well so far for him. They've been okay. He's won some games, but that division's pretty interesting, like because Atlanta's one of the best teams in baseball. And the Mets are like the worst team in baseball, and the Phillies are sort of almost the worst team in baseball. Of course, the Red Sox too, but then there's like teams like the Marlins and the Nats. They're in there saying, "Hey, we're still alive." Like the Nats are 4 games out of a playoff spot right now, so it's early, but they won
Yep.
another game yesterday.
Hey, just keep winning. That's all that matters. You gotta keep winning. So that is for sure. All right. And then we have here. There were a lot of game sevens yesterday too for the NBA. We'll get into the NHL one that was yesterday between Tampa Bay and Montreal a little bit later. But we'll do want to hit quickly on these. Philly over Boston, which we had already mentioned, 109-100. Detroit over Orlando, 116-94, and Cleveland over Toronto, 114-102. So the next round is set. OKC versus the Lakers, Minnesota against San Antonio, and then in the East you have Detroit versus Cleveland, and the Knicks versus Philly. I would recommend this to anyone watching today. If you are an NBA fan, you'll definitely want to check out Nothing But Net. That is on this network on Wednesdays. Perry and Midnight Rider do a fantastic job getting you ready for the basketball. So this is just going to be a very quick hit for us, but did want to mention it, and then to let them know, let you know where you can get some more in-depth things on the NBA. So did you see any of the NBA games at all, Scooter, or strictly hockey like me?
I was when I was watching the Hurricanes Phillies game, the 76ers game is on right next to it, and of course where I am, it's it's a big Philly town, so
Right.
everyone was watching. But yeah, I mean at the end of that game, Phillies won, or Philadelphia won, and it was a good game. But I was paying more attention to the hockey.
I know that's where our focus is, but I did at least want to mention that we saw what was going on there. So let's see here. Got one other comment. The Lightning did the most cap things ever. Yeah, we'll get into that, Jeff, because I'm in agreement with you. Save that for when we get to that game discussion. So let's do this here real quick. We're gonna take a quick break and then we'll come back. I do have some more entries in the Oh Say Can You Sing, and then after that we will dive into some hockey. So we'll be right back after these words. Okay, we are back here. So let me go ahead here and get into where we're at on the Oh Say Can You Sing. So we had a few entries. The line there's where we left off at. So the first one there was Cammie Clune, and then of course Jeff on Pittsburgh. Now a couple of these teams will now be done. So you can see here we had some. The worst one was poor Amanda in Tampa. She gave this rendition of "Oh Canada" that was pitchy. It was somehow worse than the last one, and slower. So she got a 29 out of that one. Then we had a couple other ones. Most of them were in the 40s. I did give Adam Lee Decker from the game that we went to live. He got one of his more higher scores because I think live he sounds better than he does on TV. It just doesn't come out quite as pitchy as he does on TV for sure. So that was good. And then Amanda redeemed herself a little bit. She had a bit higher score on her Canadian one last night. Sonia got her lowest score because she sang the first verse last night, and then that was it until the last verse. And you got to sing. Like I get that you want to let the audience sing with you, which is fine. We did also have the Kentucky Derby in there, the Tedeschi Trucks group, which I thought that was going to be really good because I've heard that band do some different songs on. They just recently were on Howard Stern, and they were really, really good on there. But the anthem, whoa. I didn't like it. I don't know. It's just the guitar riffs in the background were weird. Her voice was okay, but not great. But then it ended with one of the other ones from 5-1 was Todd Angeli, who his last one for Boston because Boston is done. But he did a solid job. So those were the latest entries of "Oh Say Can You Sing," and I've been watching basketball games trying to get some in there, but for whatever reason they just don't show the anthem on these games for whatever reason. So
Yeah, I don't know the reasons for that, but yeah, I'm kind. It's kind of weird that like Tedeschi Trucks was doing the Kentucky Derby of all things. It's like the genre makes sense, kind of, because it's kind of rocky hillbilly kind of stuff like that. But I've never seen. I've seen them plenty of times. I've never seen them do like a national anthem. So
neither did I, and I was really looking forward to it, but just it didn't hit for me. So it's unfortunately one of the lower scores. So if
yeah,
I rank these here from largest to smallest, and this is still doing USA and everything like that. So no real changes as far as there. And like I said, they end up way down here towards the bottom. So I gave them, I think it was like in the 30s if I remember correctly. So yeah, so they were 30, 38. So they're one of my
38.
lowest. Yeah, they're one of my lower scores, unfortunately. So there you have the "Oh Say Can You Sing" entries, of course, for a little bit of fun to that. And then I talked about, that anytime anyone wants to throw in a comment their favorite sporting event, Vic puts his in here. And of course, it's the game 7 in 2006 with the Canes against Edmonton because we were there. He was there with his dad. So yeah, I was there too, but I didn't have any kids with me or anything like that. So it can't be my favorite one as a family. I think, as far as hockey games goes, this one from this last weekend would be that with the playoffs. And, had a couple of fun with my wife and son at some guards playoff games that they've won. Probably my favorite event with that was actually we did when they were in Chicago for that game 5, which they won to go up 3-1. They did a watch party, at the Jake, and well, it was game 4. Yeah, that's right, it was game 4. That was a lot of fun because the crowd was into it and leaving, and we were all expecting good things to happen, and of course, unfortunately, we know that did not happen. But this one was obviously my favorite sporting event live without any of my family at because getting to watch the Canes race the cup was very cool. So clearly that would be it for Vic. So, all right. So, but again, if anyone else has any, feel free to throw them into any of the chats. We will definitely read them for sure. So, all right. So we're through the weekend. So let's get into our drive to the net. This is going to be again our big focus, and we will of course start with the ladies. They've had a few of the games played. Boston, Ottawa are tied at 1. This series has pretty much gone, the way that we talked about, where I talked about the two goalies, Ottawa for Gwyneth Phillips, and then her teammate Aaron Frankel for Boston. And Gwyneth stole game 1 for Ottawa. She had 30 of 31 saves. They won the game 3-1. One of the goals was an empty netter. Ottawa had goals from Ranja Slavonen and Kadrova, and then Boston score was scored by a young lady named Megan Keller, who that name should sound familiar, as she had the game winner, of course, for the U.S. against Canada. And then Gabby Hughes adds the empty netter. Game 2, Boston wins 2-1. Phyllis was still good. She had 26 of 28. Franco only faced 18 shots, stopping 17. Ottawa did score first on a goal by Jacqueline Larocque. And then Boston scores their 2 goals a minute 34 apart late in the second by Alana Miller and Jamie Lerotte. So that is where that series is at, tied at 1. Their game 3 is not till Friday. So I don't know what's going on in Ottawa for whatever reason, because that's what the next games are going to be played at. But if the PWHL has tried to stay mostly on the weekends and everything like that, but that's a long break to go from game 2 to game 3 for sure. Then remember, I told you, I was like, I don't know if I'm Montreal that I asked for the defending champs. They've only played 1 game so far, but this game was a little bit of a surprise because this game ended up being 5-4 in overtime. I thought this was also going to be kind of low scoring, but so far not so. Minnesota was up early 2-0 on goals by Katie Knoll and Kendall Cohen Schoenfeld. Again, another name you should recognize from the Olympics. Montreal ties up on 2 from goals by Cheyenne Dargangelo and Laura Stacy, also names you should recognize from the Olympics. Montreal then gets 2 more from her. So Minnesota takes a 3-2 lead at the end of the second, and then they score. The teams trade goals, 3 goals in minute 48 in the third. Game goes to overtime, 4:30 in overtime. Jen C. Rose scores the winner for Minnesota. Game 2 is on Tuesday. Game 3 is on Thursday. So that's where we're at on the ladies' side. So, I mean, Montreal still can easily win this series, but I told you, I don't know that I would have asked for the defending champs, and this is why.
Yes, you did.
So, did you see any of the ladies' games or no?
I missed them all, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the Minnesota one was on Amazon Prime, which we do have, so I was able to watch some of that one. And I think that's for whatever reason, the Boston Ottawa is not on that. It's only on, but it is on YouTube that you can watch it. So minor league side, the East Coast Hockey League, so far it is all chalk. The higher seeds have won. There are two series still going on. South Carolina in the South is ahead of Atlanta 3-2. South Carolina is the higher seed, and Maine is leading Adirondack. That is also 3-2. Again, there will be new champs in the East Coast Hockey League, but so far we're seeing a lot of chalk in the East Coast Hockey League. Then in the AHL, they're now at least through all these first rounds. Remember, before my joke was you kind of needed to have like a math degree to figure out who is going to advance from where and how. And the division semifinals, some of them are in their deciding games. These are also best of 5 series.
We have one that has moved on.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, because they just beat Syracuse, so that one is now over with there. So they are into the divisional finals. The Cleveland is, of course, the farm team of the Columbus Blue Jackets. But Hershey, I know a lot of people here are Caps fans. They took out Binghamton, which is the last year for them, unfortunately, because they are going to move to Ottawa. Yeah, Bridgeport. I'm sorry. What I
You're thinking Binghamton. You combined the two of them.
I made a whole new city on that one. How about that?
You did. So. I like it though.
But so it does create a fun little it seems like the baby Pens and the baby Caps meet a lot in the AHL, and
the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
Yes, and so we have the baby Pens and the baby Caps again in the division semifinals, so that should be fun.
Series 1-1.
Yeah, and the Atlantic Series is the only one that is set up with upsets, because Springfield upset Charlotte, which is Florida's team, and they also took game 1 against Providence 2-1. So the 6th seed in the Atlantic Division is currently up in that one. We'll see. All these division semifinals are now underway as well. We had a lot of chalk out in the Pacific. Well, 7 teams made it.
Yeah. Springfield, they're also playing Providence, the Bruins, and Providence is the best team in the AHL by far.
They were.
Yeah, Springfield wasn't good. Everyone makes playoffs almost, but
right.
People may remember a certain rapper, Snoop Dogg. So Snoop, in his video Gin and Juice, he wears a Springfield Indians hockey jersey of the AHL, which at the time were the Hartford Whalers minor league team, by the way.
Correct, and then they moved onto St. Louis, since Hartford now is with the Rangers, of course. So hold on here, since you did.
That's right. Hartford was also the Wolfpack was the worst team in the AHL this year.
They were, which is normally they do pretty well, but
and the Rangers were almost the worst team in the NHL. So
and again, that's where you get what we talked about the Rangers for next year. It's like they don't really have much in their minor league system, and what they have up here is getting old quick. So yeah, if you're a Rangers fan, these are never good signs. It's really hard to tell by a team winning the AHL. Some teams try to leave these kids alone in the AHL. Some teams, like. You got teams that are making moves that they're in the NHL playoffs and bringing guys up for their practice squad and stuff like that. So you just never know how these things play out with teams being able to move guys around and stuff. I think Springfield loaded up some younger guys that were playing for St. Louis just to give them some playoff experience, which if they got options, you can do. So, what team rosters end up looking like from the playoffs to when the season starts can be drastically different in the AHL as well.
And an interesting to that point is that tomorrow is the NHL draft lottery.
It is. I think they're doing that in the first and second period intermission of the first playoff game, right?
The Capitals have about a 1% chance of getting the number 1 draft pick.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
That's right. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, because I think that is the game tomorrow that they do that during. It would be the Wild and Avalanche are the only game tomorrow. So I think that's in between the first and second period of that one. So
could be a wild game.
Yeah, we'll get to that later too when we get to that one, because that was a wild game. So all right, so there's our minor league updates. So let's do this here real quick. Let's do one more quick commercial break, and then we'll get to where we're at on the NHL playoffs. right, so we are back, and so with that being said, here we go. So we, of course, we'll go with finishing off how the series ended, and then we'll get into the divisional rounds. We have had a couple that have start. Two of them have not started yet, so we'll get into that here first. So first, we'll start with this one because I think of all the first round, this was probably the biggest upset. Anaheim does end up taking out Edmonton 4-2. The ones in bold on all these screens are the ones that when we our last show where the series were at. So Edmonton had one at home. They looked okay in that one, but then just the demons that had haunted Edmonton and Scooter, I think the point that you hit on, like you could just tell, I think this team just looked tired. And Connor Ingram is not the goalie when you are a tired team that can then take a team on their back and steal games. And he just was not good enough. So, Troy Terry, Leo Carlson, and Chris Kreider all had a goal and 2 assists in the clincher. I think the biggest question is, where does Edmonton go from here? Because you heard Connor McDavid, he still has 2 years left. Leon Draisaitl has time left on his deal. But where does Edmonton go from here? Like, it's the same shit every year. Like the defense isn't just quite good enough and the goalie isn't quite good enough, yet they don't address those and they expect better things. And I don't know what to expect for Edmonton for next year. Do you have any thoughts on where you think Edmonton's going to go?
Well, I think the best thing that happened is they're out. They're out of the playoffs. They can actually rest because this happens to them every year. You're talking about, but let's not forget that the past 2 years they're in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they're pretty good the few years before that too. But so they got those tired legs on there, like you were talking about. I would say that they should probably give themselves a little time to rest, and then find a goalie.
Yeah. And the bad news is there's not really, I guess maybe they make a play at Bobrovsky, who will be a free agent from Florida, which would be kind of unique there. Maybe convince St. Louis to trade away Bennington, but I don't know. I don't know if he had kind of a down year this year. Who knows? Maybe Winnipeg's ready to move on from Halbuck, or maybe a Jake Ottinger. We'll get to Dallas here, might be ready to move on. So one of the other ones here, Philly does advance to the next round too. They also beat Pittsburgh 4-2. I think this was also a bit of a surprise. I think a lot, including myself, thought that Pittsburgh would handle Philly pretty easily, but Philly shows when they get the lead, that team knows how to play. Very smart defense, and this series was all about Dan Vladar in goal. He was absolutely brilliant in the clinching game. He stops 42 of 42 shots, and not that Artur Silvos was bad for Pittsburgh. He gave them a shot after they finally made the move away from Skinner. He played really well in most of these games, and only gives up the one goal by Cam York, but unfortunately that's all it took. So Philly moves on. Sidney Crosby is done, and we'll see what happens in Pittsburgh. I think they all come back for one more year, but he's getting up there in age too. So when do those three all decide to move on will be interesting. But Philly goes on, of course, to play Carolina. We'll get into that series here when we get to the semifinals. So were you surprised by this one too, like I was?
Well, I mean, I picked Pittsburgh to win the series, and I thought it was be like 6 games maybe. So a little bit, but I'm not surprised that Philly played well. And here's the thing: when they talk about goalies stealing one of the games, I mean, that was like Grand Theft Auto with that last game of the season, that last game of the series, because Pittsburgh outplayed Philly like no one's business, and yet Philly wins 1-0. They had no reason to win that game. Their goaltender stole that game, and I think Pittsburgh wins that game. They probably win the next game.
Very well could have. That last game was so weird because like the first 2 periods just were very slow. They just seemed like they didn't have much going on. Then the third period, all of a sudden you start getting some chances, and Vladar was just lights out good. Like you said, he definitely stole that game. As much as and not that Silvos was bad, because he did make some big saves too at different points in time. But man, just. I was a little surprised by this, but I think unfortunately Pittsburgh does not have the youth and the team speed to create situations that Philly can't defend, and I think that's what you saw in this series. Come out to form is that Pittsburgh's going to have to find a way to get younger and faster.
Yeah, and I think you saw like Tippett from Jaws, but I mean you're going to see I think we just saw what happens when he's not playing. So like it's a different Philadelphia team. So what happened in that last game there, the last game of that series, there's it looks like there's repercussions.
Yeah, because the players, he's got his own hearing coming up here too for because he it was that was the slash, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, but Tippett himself's just like, I mean, we didn't get to see him in game one.
Right. I've not heard yet if he's playing tonight or not. I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything from Philly yet if he is or isn't. All
And
right. So
so I think
there's
Philly moves with him, and that's how
yeah.
they did it. And then, there's a little, he's got some thing going on in the last game, and
Yep.
they didn't get anything going on because of it.
No, I agree with you on that one. So this one, Vegas, Utah was up 2-1. Vegas wins the last three. Two of them were 5-4 in overtime, and I think the last one was really the one. Utah. You know, I honestly thought Utah was going to win this series. Vegas just ended up, that their experience does come through, and especially I think that this whole series turned when in that game 5, Utah's up 4-3 with 53 seconds left to go, and then instead it's Pavel Doriev gets the goal to tie it up at 4, sends it to overtime. 5:28 to the second overtime, shorthanded. Brett Howden gets his third of the playoffs shorthanded to win it, and they dominated game 6. Utah just never, you could just tell they just, a young team, most of them in their first time in the playoffs, and that loss of game 5, they could not respond to it timely, and Vegas moves on to get Anaheim.
Yeah, and you're seeing um, what the coach Tortorella is doing out there. They were down 2-1. He's just like, don't worry about it.
Yep.
We're fine. And they then they win 3 straight games with scoring 5 goals in each game. So he's
Yep.
like, and that's not a playoff trait, 5 goals a game.
No.
And so he's just like, we have players to do this. And he believed in his goalies. It was a little sketchy there. But then that last game, I think that was Vegas. That was Torts just saying, we're not losing this game. We're taking our skates and we're slicing the jugular. And
Yep.
then we're pushing down even harder. So there's no let up. We're gonna kick them home right now. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, agree totally on that one. That's exactly Torts taking over was there. This one was fun. Buffalo takes out Boston 4-2. Boston wins game 5 2-1 in overtime to force game 6, and you're starting to think, okay, maybe that experience of Boston comes through. And it just didn't happen. Alex Lyon for Buffalo is the big reason why. He was tremendous in game 6. He's kind of seemed like he's found the fountain of youth since they put him in for Ekapuka Luukkonen. And he's been really, really good and really solid, and he's given Buffalo a chance in every game. And Buffalo's getting enough goals, so they advance for the first time since 2007, and they take out another one. Boston and Pittsburgh kind of are very similar teams to me. Both teams kind of where I think they're getting towards the end of their runs, and you got to kind of start wondering, what does Boston do to infuse some youth into that lineup too? Because I think they're kind of in the same boat. They're probably still a playoff team, but how do you get from just being a playoff team to being, going and advancing a couple of rounds?
Yeah, you said it right by Lyon that once he finally came in, the games he played in, he gives up 1 goal 3 games, 2 goal 1 game. Yep. I mean, in the one game, the 2 goals in 1 game, they only had 1 goal. So that was a thing where Boston was really putting it on there. And but yeah, he's really good. So hopefully they got to ride him out.
And that was overtime too. So it's like
it could have gone anyway.
Could have gone either way for them.
Could have been just 1 goal.
Yep. And then we had our big fun that the 2 series that were just really, really good. Minnesota ends up winning the last 2 in this one, so they end up winning 3 in a row as well. So they take out the Dallas Stars. We talked about the shame that one of these teams was going to be out, and it is again Dallas. And I mentioned earlier, Ottinger was okay. He wasn't terrible in these playoffs. Wasn't really great either, but I don't know that I would signal him out as the reason why they lost this series. Quinn Hughes had 2 goals and assists in the clinching game. So Quinn Hughes has just continued his dominance from the Olympics too. So Minnesota, and these were yes, the 4-2, 5-2, you might think it was a blowout. Well, they were all empty net goals. These were 1 goal games with an empty netter or 2 empty netters added on by Minnesota. So again, another series that could have gone either way. Minnesota ends up taking it, and they, of course, get Colorado. their game one, which we'll get into here in a little bit, was one for the books for sure. So Minnesota wins the series, takes out your Dallas Stars, who I know you thought were gonna win the series and go far. So how are you recouping from losing your Dallas Star pick?
Yeah, I mean, especially after Tampa Bay, there's no turning back. There's no turning back.
Nope.
So that's it. It's over for this guy. As Kramer says, I'm out. But right, the Minnesota goalie, they've been really. I mean, Dallas 2 goals, Dallas 2 goals, Dallas. I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
Jesper
you're
Wallstedt
going to
was
give up
good.
some 4 goals in some of these games, but that's a good team Minnesota has. So let's see what they do.
And then there was the game seven last night. Montreal outlast Tampa Bay 4-3. You can see, I mean, you talk about a great series. You know, you had 4 of these games go to overtime. Every game was a 1-goal game. But last night's game, I've seen a lot of hockey over my years. I really, like more than there's probably more hockey that I've seen that I've forgotten that I've seen than even than what I remember. Um, I've ne- like Montreal had no business winning this game yesterday. They had 9 shots on goal for the game. That is the fewest amounts of shots on goal where a team has won a game in the NHL playoff history. Uh, we're talking a long time, right? So like it's never been done before what Montreal did last night, and uh, you know their goalie was phenomenal. He played lights out, and even the 2 goals that Montreal scored, I wouldn't say that they were bad goals. One was a tip, was a double tip in front of him. The other one, like he just he bounces, he hits it out of midair, and it goes on net and goes in. Like I can't really say that those were bad goals that he gave up. They're unfortunate goals. But I just Tampa had no business winning this game. Cooper after the game was talking about it. Like, sometimes you play really, really well and you just don't win. Like, and that was one of those times. Like, and as a Carolina fan, I feel for him. Like, there were many times where I felt like we outplayed Florida during those couple of years, and Florida still won the game, right? That's what happens. And I think that was the case last night for Montreal. So yeah, just a crazy, crazy game and a crazy way for Montreal to advance to play Buffalo. So, what were your thoughts on the game yesterday, Scooter?
I mean, this whole series, that this is a playoff series. I mean, this is what the playoffs are made for. Low scoring, 1 goal games. Hopefully you get to overtime in a few of them. I mean, geez, that was a lot of overtimes. I mean, Montreal wins a game, they get another steal. Sometimes you steal them. And good for
Yep.
Marty St. Louis, because he really showed himself to be a really good coach in the playoffs now. And so there he is, shaking hands in the line at the end of that game, and he can look up and he can see that Tampa Bay Lightning championship banner he brought in, and he looks over and he gets to see his retired number 2 up there, and that not a bad homecoming.
Nope, not at all. So what this does mean is for the first time in 5 years, we will not have a Florida team in the Eastern Conference Final because Tampa had gone to a few in a row, and then of course the success of the Florida Panthers. So we've got a new team there, which will be kind of interesting to see how that all plays out for the East. We have to talk about Tampa though a little bit. This is the 4th opening round series loss in a row for the Tampa Lightning. So again, you talk about a team with some guys, I don't know what's going on with Khrushchev. Like he's only had 2. What was it? It was 2 playoff goals in his last. I can't remember what they said that the stat now. I meant to write it down and I forgot. And same thing with Vasilevsky. He's getting up there. Another year older on him. So what do we do with Kucherov and what do you do with Vasilevsky? I have no clue where Tampa Bay goes moving forward. But you got to expect there's going to be some changes in Tampa too.
I mean, hockey is finicky, isn't it? So it would be interesting to see if like Cooper loses his job. It could happen. I mean,
It
that would
could.
be totally not beyond the realm of possibility at all. That they're like, okay, we're going to move in a different direction. We
Wouldn't be the
we haven't
first time,
done.
right?
Hmm?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that a team that's gone out 4 times in a
No,
row in the first round gets rid of their
no.
coach, even though
I
he
mean,
made.
you wouldn't get better.
And let's be
You're not getting
honest,
better.
if that happens, Cooper will not be without a job long. Like,
Oh, he'd be hired within like 12 hours.
yeah, exactly. So that would not last long at all. So
Yeah,
so there
yeah.
you have it. That's the recap of round one. Now we're going to get into the divisional final round and who is going to play where, and we'll get going into these series. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take one final commercial break, and then we will be right back. All right, so we are back, ladies and gentlemen. So now let's get into the series that are ongoing now. These are the division final rounds. So the NHL actually did something I've never seen them that they haven't done in a few years anyway, where they're actually willing on starting the next round while the other round is still finishing up. I think some of that is obviously because they did not want to lose the primetime Saturday game, and when those other two series ended in 6, they decided to make Carolina, who had been sitting for a week, Philly, who had been sitting since Wednesday, go ahead and start on Saturday. Carolina, which this is a game I was at, Carolina wins this game 3-0, and it's really the same story for Carolina. Logan Stankoven continues his run, maybe towards a possible Conn Smythe if they can keep going on this road. He scores the first goal in the game again. That's his 4th out of 5th. He then scores a goal later, so he now has 6 goals. The line of Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, and Jackson Blake has just been the difference in the game. So they scored 91 seconds into this game. They actually get on Vladar a little bit, and Freddie was good. He didn't really have to be great until the 3rd period, and then he did make some big saves to get yet another shutout win. So it's his 2nd shutout in 5 games as well, and he's just been really, really good. I anticipate this series is going to be low scoring just because Carolina doesn't seem to have a line that's scoring right now, and Philly can't score either.
Breaking news. Tippett out again for Philly.
So Tippett's out. Nichushkin's also out for Carolina. He was supposed to go for game 1, did not with the concussion. They decided not to. Mike Riley steps in, an old vet who then gets 2 assists. So he steps right into that spot and scores. So yeah, so no Tippett I think is huge for Philly because Philly's got to get the lead early. Vladar's got a 182 and a 928 save percentage. Freddie is better than that at a 0.90, which is just, again, incredible considering what he looks like coming down the stretch, and a 961 save percentage. Neither team has a good power play right now. Philly is at 9.5%. Philly or Carolina's only at 10%. The difference, though, is that the penalty kill, Philly's a respectable 87%. Carolina's at 96%. They have only given up 1 power play goal so far. So if Philly's going to get into this thing, they're going to need to get their power play going because I don't know that they're going to get enough scoring 5-on-5. And they're going to have to get the first goal. Somebody's going to have to make Carolina play from behind. They've yet to have to do that. So I fully do think Carolina's going to win this series. But hey, I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to beat Philly. So what do I know? Scooter, who do you think wins this one?
Well, I had this series looking pretty good initially. I was saying 7 games. Don't be surprised. Philadelphia pushes them to the brink. But this Tippett thing is a problem. So 4-2 Carolina tonight. It's 3-2 going into the 4th, and then they score another goal in the 3rd.
Okay. So there's our first series that we have. Now this other one, this one started last night. We talked about the Minnesota, or excuse me, the Montreal Tampa Bay game was a game that I really had not seen a team that deserved, that win a game with 9 shots. Colorado scored 9 goals. They scored the same amount of goals that Montreal had shots in their game, ladies and gentlemen. This game was insane. Colorado ends up winning it 9-6. It's without a doubt one of the craziest game ones ever. And most of we talk about how tightly playoff games are usually played. This was not that last night. This had that last team to score wins type feeling to it. Colorado gets up 3-0. Minnesota answers with 2. Later, Minnesota ties it at 4. They even take a 5-4 lead. Colorado then scores the next 3, and they finally take a lead that they are going to hold on to. So the final score is 9-6. We talked about these goalie and Jesper Wallstedt had been really, really good. They kept him in the whole game. I kind of thought they might pull him after the first 3, but I mean they did come back and take a lead. But I thought just to maybe preserve some selfness for him because they're going to need him as the series moves on. He gives up 8 goals on 42 shots. Scott Wedgwood was not much better. Gives up 6 on 36. McCarr came back for Colorado. He has 2 goals back. McKinnon and Natchez had 3 points. Quinn Hughes has 3 points for Minnesota. We talked about him earlier. His remarkable play continues. So I think whoever wins this series is gonna easily take care of Anaheim or Vegas. I just think Colorado surprised me in the sense that they got 3-0. I thought, boy, look out, here comes the train. But Minnesota, I'll give Minnesota credit. They fought back and made this game fun. So what do you think? Does Minnesota have the firepower to upset Colorado?
Well, I think first of all, if you're Colorado, you're upset at yourself. You gave up 6 goals. Okay, you scored 9, but you gave up 6. That's not good. Okay, so go to Minnesota. They totally could have just like, okay, 12-1, it's cool, like whatever. But no, they made it fun, as you said, and they were coming off of a real tough. Their goaltending was really good in that first week, which we talked about. But it's going to be. I don't expect this going. It's going to be like 3-2, 4-3. The rest of this, I don't think you're going to see this kind of number again.
No, we shouldn't, I don't think. But I mean, both these teams have Colorado's power play is at 15%, really, which you do not want to have Colorado going to power play. Their penalty kills at 84%. Minnesota power plays at 14%. What's killing Minnesota, their penalty kill right now is at 59.3%. If you got a bad penalty kill and you're going against a team like Colorado,
It'd be a short series.
that is not good at all. And Colorado had 2 power play goals in this game. So Minnesota's going to have to figure that out. They're going to want to make this a series. I think they will, but this maybe
Yeah.
6 games. I think this has an interesting time off too. They play game 2 on Tuesday, then they don't play again until Saturday. Then they get into the every other type of situation. So a long break for these guys after game 2. We'll see if that plays into it as well. And Carolina's got a 3-day break when they go from after this game today. Then they got 3 days off until they go into Philly too. So a couple of these series has some interesting breaks in them. We'll see if that changes anything for either team. Vic throwing in here. Oh yeah, I did see this. They announced that Ridley Gregg will get a 2-game suspension for his sucker punch on Walker. That's from the ending of the Ottawa Kane series where there's that little brouhaha, and he was engaged with Svechnikov with another guy, and then he gets in a couple kidney punches, on his own. So he's getting 2 games for that, which that's probably about what he deserves, I guess. With the NHL suspension wheel, you just never know what's going to happen. So, all right, so that's the one series. The other series out west gets going tonight as well. So we got game 2 is Carolina and Philly tonight. Then after that, we do have Anaheim versus Vegas. This series is going to be interesting. I'll be honest, I didn't have either one of these guys getting here. I had Edmonton and Utah getting there. So both of these teams are in there. This one is neither goalie was great in round 1. Hart's got a 2.72 and 898. Dostal has a 387 and 874. Now, granted, he was going against Edmonton's offense, so I'll give him a little bit of a break for that. Jackson Lacombe for Anaheim has 9 points. Jack Eichel has 9 points for Vegas. I'm going to expect goals in this series. Anaheim's power play is at 50%. Their PK is only at 71.4%. Vegas' power play is at 20. Their kill's been pretty good at 93.8. I honestly think Vegas is going to roll in this series, just like you said. I think the experience of Torts is going to be too much for Anaheim, and Vegas does not have the defensive problems that Edmonton does. So I don't think Anaheim's going to find it quite as easy to score goals in this series as they did in the first series. Scooter, do you agree or disagree with that?
No, I'd agree with that, and I think it is really probably going to come down to special teams on this one because of exactly what you're saying there. It's like, hey, where they're like 14 out of 15 on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
And what did they do? 4 for 10 or something, 4 for 20. I mean, they could do better on the power play, but their penalty killing sick. However, Anaheim, I think they went 50% on the power play, so it should be an interesting battle. So you got teams that kill the penalty, but you got teams that play, real well. So that will be the most interesting what to see is when Anaheim's on the power play. If they can't score, then Anaheim is going to lose, and it's going to be tough to score against Vegas on the power play.
All right, we had a special request. Midnight Rider asked, "What does the wheel say?" So let's spin the wheel. Let's see if the wheel agrees with the 2-game suspension that the NHL gave, because I do think that this is how they did it.
Yeah,
there you go, Midnight Rider. The wheel does not lie. He got the appropriate suspension. It appears 2 games. The wheel says, and that's what the NHL gave him. So there you go. Just for you, Midnight Rider. Got the wheel pulled up, and sure enough, the wheel doesn't lie. What can you say? So all right. So there's that series. So we got one more series to go here. This one I think is going to be really interesting. This does not start till Wednesday. I'm kind of surprised that they're giving Montreal till Wednesday. I think this game one should have been tomorrow, but it is what it is. So this series will not start till Wednesday. You got Montreal and Buffalo. I'll just say this. I know Buffalo's young. You know, the question is going to be, can Alex Lyon keep it going? He's got a 1.14 and a 955 save percentage. Jacob Dobash has also been good. He's the first rookie to win a road game 7 since Jordan Binnington won the Cup for St. Louis against Boston. He's been solid at 2.03 and a 923. Both of these teams are young. One of them is going to get into the Eastern Conference Final. If Montreal plays like they did against Tampa, I think Buffalo will win this series. Montreal's got guys that can score. I just don't know, why they're, I don't know. I don't know if they were afraid to try to go ice, coast to coast against Tampa. Hey, it worked. They won the series, but Buffalo's got, I think, a little bit more youth and a little bit more speed. And if they try to do that against Buffalo, I don't think it's going to work. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting I found out about this series is Montreal has 56% on face-offs. So they're the best team remaining with face-off. Buffalo is 43%. They're the worst team remaining with face-off. I mean, you win games 2-1, 3-2 because you're winning face-offs in your own zone and getting the puck out of there. And if Buffalo can't get the face-offs, and Montreal's always winning in their own zone, it could be a long series for Buffalo. So I think that's the key right there is face-offs. As weird as it sounds.
Well, and that leads into the special teams, and Montreal's at 20% on their power play, 82.8 on the kill. Buffalo's only at 4.2. They've had one power play goal so far, 87.5 on the PK. So the PK has been respectable. But yeah, usually you have a better chance of scoring a power play goal if you can win that opening faceoff. So we'll see what happens there. So that's the last series. That is all 4 of the series. Then again, so the way that this will work out, these are all best 4 out of 7. The winner of Carolina, Philly will get the winner of Montreal, Buffalo. Colorado, Minnesota gets the winner of Anaheim, Vegas, and those will be your conference finals. So that is where we are at on the NHL side of things. So Scooter, any other NHL things that you want to hit on here before we say goodbye?
No, we're good. We good.
All right, so our next show is going to be on May 11th. We'll dive more into these divisional final matchups. Some of them could be over. Some of them likely. I think that if you're talking games 6 and 7, that will be getting towards our May 18th show. I have set a date for the sports pricing families out of sports. That's going to be on July 20th. So we'll give you some more details as that gets closer as well. Then of course you have some great shows, and of course we always talk about this where you can watch us at live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And then, of course, you can listen to us the next day on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pocket Cast, Podbean, and Castbox. There is no pretenders or contenders tonight. Coach is taking tonight off, so just so you know. But tomorrow, we talked about nothing but net on Wednesdays. If you are a basketball fan at the NBA, Unapologetic Sports at Tuesday at 6:30, they are going to be debating who is the GOAT in basketball. So, is it Kobe? Is it MJ? Is it LeBron? What do these guys think? What do some of the rest of us think? I think they're trying to get everyone on here that has an opinion on it to come on. They're talking about having me come on to talk a little puck, but I don't know. We'll see. I think that's going to be that's could be a full hour show right there in that debate. So join that tomorrow at 6:30, and then I'm sure the guys will probably be picking that up on the Tuesday night flight at 8:00, and then we talk about nothing but net on Wednesday, and then the Thursday night throwdown at 8, and the rest of Maniacs, of course, are on Saturday, and then the Sunday Rise at 11. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are all of your fantastic shows here on the Sideline Junkies Podcast Network. And with that, it's almost that time to say adios. So, Scooter, any last thoughts that you wanna hit on?
Yeah, so I was watching the other night. It's a movie called The Rowdy and Raunchy League. It was made a few years ago. It's about it's about an hour-long documentary about the World Hockey Association. I found it really, really great. You get to see a lot of interviews. You see what made Bobby Hull with his, he was the first $1 million athlete ever. It's a really good documentary if you get a chance to see it. It's only an hour long. And, same people who came up with the ABA, who came up with the WHA, same exact people, because they wanted to do something, give a little more money out to people, have a little different league. And it's really, really an interesting history on Europeans and Swedes coming in the WHA, well before the NHL, and the WHA just becoming fun, fast, and a lot of brawls out there. So it's very slap shot dish.
What was that? What was that on?
You can find it on Tubi. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime, but it's
Okay.
definitely on Tubi. Actually, in fact, I may have seen it on that one. So
Okay.
it's the Rowdy and Raunchy League.
All right. I'll have to check that one out. So,
And Wayne
I,
Gretzky, they got a whole bunch of interviews. Howard Baldwin, the former owner of the Whalers and Penguins, he's in it. He's great in it. And there's just a lot of great interviews. And so you'll be like with Bobby Hull, you'll be like, wow, he just said that.
oh yeah, I love anything dealing with from hockey in the 70s is always good fun. You just hear the stories of how it was back then.
Yeah, yeah.
The sport has changed. Whether some would probably argue whether it's for the better or not. I don't know. It's definitely quicker, but yeah, some of those stories of hockey in the 70s and 80s just makes you appreciate things here for sure.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I do appreciate everyone's time. Like I said, this was a fun show to do. The trip to Raleigh was great, and anyone that followed along on the little stuff that I posted out there, I appreciate that. And until next show, so we'll see you next Monday, May 11th. And then, as I always say, make sure you tell your loved ones that you love them and hug them because tomorrow is not guaranteed. But until then, we will hopefully see you next Monday and enjoy the show tomorrow on Unapologetic Sports. Like I said, that should be a lot of fun. So we'll see you guys all then tomorrow. Until then, everyone, take care and let's go Canes.
Star Trek. Wait, what
No,
movie? Star Wars?
Star Wars. Yes. I don't. Yeah. Oh, there
Pew,
was a thing
pew,
with you.
pew.
Yeah. There you go.